At a family reunion, my dad laughed, "We only kept you because abortion was expensive back then." Everyone laughed. I walked out without a word. When they tried to cut me out of the trust later, I returned with receipts that blew their perfect image apart. Hey Reddit, grew up as the designated family afterthought, ignored, mocked, and treated like the backup plan they never wanted. So I said screw it, built a whole new life on my terms, and disappeared. Turns out they didn't appreciate that. Before everything blew up, here's how it all started. 50 plus people packed around those long plastic tables, the kind you rent from party supply places that always wobble. Kids were sprinting in circles with juice boxes, adults getting progressively louder as the sun went down and the boxed wine disappeared. I'd been at this reunion for 3 days already, hauling coolers and grilling burgers, when the designated guy bailed. I was standing off to the side, holding a Coke I hadn't touched in 20 minutes, when my dad climbed onto a wooden bench. He was 3 drinks deep. His face was red, shirt untucked, and he had that loose grin he gets when he thinks he's being charming. He clinked his glass with a fork until the noise died down. All right, he said, voice booming. Can I get everyone's attention? Phones came out. My brother Blake looked smug, arms crossed like he already knew what was coming. He was 31, successful in that way that requires zero effort when your dad hands you a VP title and a company car. My sister Vanessa flipped her hair and struck a pose for someone's camera. She made a living posting pictures of her breakfast and calling it content. And then there was me, Connor, 26, the youngest by 5 years, the one they didn't plan for. I'd heard the whispers growing up. Not trying for a third, almost didn't keep him. Never said to my face until I was 12 and overheard my dad during a fight about money. Well, if we didn't have to pay for Connor's stuff, we'd have more saved up. That's when I learned I was a line item, an expense, the budget problem. But I tried. I stayed quiet. Got decent grades. Went to state college on partial scholarship. Got a job doing commercial drone photography, something practical that actually paid. I paid my own bills, stayed out of trouble, didn't ask for anything. I thought maybe if I just didn't rock the boat long enough, I'd earn some respect. I was wrong. Dad cleared his throat and scanned the crowd. I figured this would be another harmless dad speech about family and memories. Then he reached out and grabbed my shoulder, pulling me forward into the center of everything. And this guy, he said, laughing. This guy, right here. I smiled. Awkward, but trying to play along. This one's our little miracle, Dad continued, his voice carrying across the whole backyard. Well, more like an accident that didn't end too badly. Some polite laughter rippled through the crowd. My jaw tightened, but I kept the smile frozen on my face. Yep, he said, grinning wider now, feeding off the energy. The oops, baby. The mistake we decided to keep. The backyard erupted. My uncle nearly spit beer across the table. My aunt was actually clapping like this was the best joke she'd heard all year. Blake snorted into his glass, shaking his head like Dad had just told the punchline to a killer setup. Someone yelled, "At least you kept the receipts." More laughter. But hey, Dad said, riding the wave. He didn't end up in prison or living in our basement, so I'd call that a parenting win, right? The crowd lost it. People were howling. Someone was filming on their phone. I could see the screen from where I stood, the little red recording dot staring at me like a sniper sight. I looked around. Only 2 people looked uncomfortable. My cousin Amy mouthed, "I'm so sorry," from across the yard, but she didn't say it out loud. Nobody did. I stepped back slowly. Dad was already moving on to toast Blake's latest promotion, something about a 6-figure bonus and a company retreat to Cancun. Nobody even looked at me. I set my Coke down on the nearest table and walked into the house. No dramatic exit, no slamming doors. Just walked away like I'd done 100 times before. Upstairs, I sat on the edge of the guest bed and listened to them still laughing through the window. The fire pit crackled. Someone turned on music. The party continued like I'd never been there at all. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't new. This was the role they'd assigned me 26 years ago, and nothing I'd ever done had changed it. I was the punchline, the footnote, the one they kept around to make everyone else look better by comparison. I thought about Blake's graduation party when I was 16. Dad rented out a whole restaurant, gave a speech about how proud he was, handed Blake the keys to a used Lexus. When I graduated 5 years later, we had cake in the kitchen, and Dad asked me if I'd figured out what I was doing with my life yet. I thought about when I asked to borrow $1,500 for textbooks my senior year, got a lecture about financial responsibility and bootstrapping. Meanwhile, Vanessa got a fully funded trip to Italy to find herself. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and did some quick math. $8,000 in savings, another $2,000 in checking. I lived cheap, drove a used Civic, didn't have debt. I could leave. Right now. Just go. I stood up, grabbed my wallet and charger from the nightstand, and walked downstairs. The party was still going. Nobody noticed me cross the yard to my car. Nobody waved. Nobody called out. I got in, started the engine, and drove. Didn't say goodbye, didn't pack my suitcase, didn't leave a note. I just left. By the time I crossed the state line, I'd already decided I wasn't coming back. I drove until the world turned into open sky and truck stops. Somewhere in Wyoming, I made my decision. Portland. I landed with about $10,000 total between savings and checking. Found a studio apartment in Southeast Portland for $1,200 a month. Paid 3 months up front in cash. First thing I did was erase myself. Deleted every social media account. Got a new phone number. Set up a new email. Changed my professional accounts to C. Brennan, so internet searches wouldn't pull me up easily. Then I started looking for work. My background was commercial drone operation and aerial photography. Specialized niche requiring a Part 107 license from the FAA. I built a website, sent cold emails, and got my first response 3 days later. Small firm needed aerial footage. I quoted $1,500. They agreed. Word spread fast. By month 4, I was booked solid. Within 6 months, I was pulling in $5,000 a month, sometimes 6. I could pay rent, eat real food, and sleep at night. For the first time in my life, I wasn't being compared to Blake or Vanessa. Nobody knew who I was or where I came from. Any guilt I got over leaving? Gone the second I remembered they'd throw money at Blake and Vanessa for anything, but I got a lecture for asking about textbooks. About 8 months in, I started renting a desk at a co-working space downtown. That's where I met Kate. She had the desk across from mine, always wearing band t-shirts under blazers. She worked as an HR consultant for small businesses. We started talking during coffee breaks, then actual conversations. She asked what I did. I told her about the drone work. She thought it was cool. Didn't make any jokes about it being a hobby. A week later, I asked if she wanted to grab dinner. She said yes. It was easy with her. No drama, no games. She didn't pry about my family. She just saw me. Nobody had done that before. 2 years passed, work steady, money steady, Kate steady. But some nights I'd still wake up at 3 a.m., remembering the sound of 50 people laughing at my expense. Then one Wednesday morning, I walked out of my apartment and saw a guy in khakis standing next to a sedan across the street. He looked right at me. Connor Brennan? I didn't move. Who's asking? He walked over and handed me a manila envelope. You've been served. Then he got back in his car and drove off. So much for disappearing. All it takes is a private investigator and one paper trail. Lease, utilities, DMV. And you're suddenly easy. I stood there on the sidewalk, teeth pressed together, eyes steady. I went back inside and sat down at my kitchen table. Legal papers, trust restructuring petition. Formal notice from a law firm in Ohio representing the Brennan family trust, requesting a hearing to declare me legally unreachable for the purposes of estate planning and asset distribution. Translation, they were trying to write me out of the will by claiming I'd abandoned all contact. Attached was a letter from Blake, typed, formal, dripping with fake concern. Connor, we've tried to reach you multiple times over the past 2 years. Dad's health is declining, and we need to finalize the family trust. If you don't respond within 10 days, we'll have no choice but to proceed with restructuring that excludes you from beneficiary status. Court hearing is scheduled for 18 days from now. This is your final notice. I read it twice. Then I called a lawyer. Her name was Jennifer Park, corporate attorney I'd met months earlier. She'd given me her card. I'd tossed it in a drawer. I never thought I'd need it. I showed up at her office that afternoon with the envelope. She read everything silently while I sat across from her desk. They're building an unreachability case, she said. Basic play. If they convince a judge you've ignored contact attempts, they can restructure the trust without you. Can they pull it off? Not if we move fast. Hearings in 18 days. We respond through counsel and demand full disclosure. That kills their argument. How much? $500 for now. I paid her. She drafted the response within 24 hours and sent it certified. Connor Brennan is represented by counsel, reachable, and requesting full trust documentation. All future contact goes through her. Once Jennifer entered the case, the judge immediately pushed back the hearing. Blake's little countdown clock evaporated. 2 days later, my phone lit up with unknown numbers. Somehow they'd gotten my new line. Skip trace, probably. Blake, voice tight. Come on, man. Dad's sick. Stop hiding behind a lawyer and call me. Vanessa crying. Please, Connor. This is tearing Mom apart. I deleted every voicemail without listening. Then things escalated. That Monday, Marcus, the CEO of my biggest client, called. Connor, can you come in? We need to talk. The tone said everything. At his office, he shifted in his chair before speaking. Got a call from someone claiming to be your brother. Said you're having a mental health crisis. Asked if we'd seen any unusual behavior. Heat crawled up my neck, but my voice stayed level. What exactly did he say? That you cut off your family suddenly, acted erratically, and they're worried you might be unstable. What did you tell him? That we don't discuss contractors with outsiders. But I wanted you to know. It felt like fishing. I appreciate it. I'm fine. Family issues are personal, not medical. If they call again, refer them to my attorney. I slid Jennifer's card across his desk. You've been solid for us, he said. I'm not concerned. Good. Outside, I called Jennifer immediately. They're moving to defamation, I said. Blake told my biggest client I'm mentally unstable. Get Marcus to confirm it in writing, she said. We're documenting a harassment pattern. 2 more clients got concerned family calls that afternoon. 1 ghosted. 1 asked if I was safe to hire. Jennifer logged it. 3 days later, I got locked out of my bank account. 7 password reset attempts from Ohio. Account frozen. I restored access, added 2-factor, added verbal passwords. Jennifer logged that too. That weekend, someone broke into my car. Glove box dumped. Console emptied. Trunk open. Nothing stolen. Not theft. Search. Cops shrugged. No cameras, no leads. I installed a security camera, changed my locks, bought a dash cam. Then I had Jennifer send a formal cease and desist outlining the harassment. Kate came over that night and found me sitting on the couch, staring at my laptop. What's going on? I told her everything. Reunion, speech, vanishing, the papers, the campaign to destabilize my life. She listened without a word. When I finished, she said, "So what's the play?" I exhaled. They want me cornered and unstable on paper, so I go back on my terms. Control the narrative. Make them play defense. When? Soon. I need intel first. She opened her laptop. Then we start now. We dug through public records for hours. Hartwell Manufacturing, mid-size industrial supply company in Ohio. My grandfather built it post-war. My dad expanded it in the 80s. Blake listed as VP of Operations. Then we found the real issue. 5 years ago, Hartwell took on outside investors. Meridian Capital, Chicago firm, owned 18%, enough to demand answers. Recent filings showed missed delivery deadlines. Revenue down 15%. 3 senior staff gone with no replacements. They're bleeding, Kate said. Blake's definitely hiding it. She looked at me. If you go back, they'll paint you as the problem. I know. So what's the move? I felt the answer land cleanly. I become the solution. Jennifer filed a formal discovery request the next morning. Full trust terms, proposed changes, everything. They folded in 3 weeks. A thick envelope landed on her desk. 47 pages of legal history and lawyer speak. I sat across from her while she flipped through it. Here, she said. They can't remove you without incapacity, renunciation, or a documented 6-month unreachability record. They don't have any of that. So I'm safe? Unless you sign something or they want a legal war they'll lose. And now that the hearing's delayed, they've got no timeline advantage. They counted on you not showing up. Leverage point number 1. But I needed more. I thought of Greg, the operations manager at Hartwell. Solid guy, allergic to office politics, and absolutely done with Blake. I sent him a careful LinkedIn message asking if things had really gotten worse. And he replied within 2 hours, "You have no idea. Blake's running this place into the ground." We switched to encrypted chat, where he told me they'd lost their 3 biggest clients, and morale was so bad, people were job hunting during lunch. I asked if he had documentation. He hesitated. Why? I told him I was coming back and needed proof. Another pause. If this traces back to me, I'm done. I assured him it wouldn't. Everything would go through my attorney. He sent the files that night, employee complaints, vendor emails about late payments, ignored safety reports, chaos production schedule, a 20-year veteran's resignation letter explicitly blaming Blake's incompetence. Every document told the same story. Blake wrecks something, then blames someone else. I forwarded it all to Jennifer. This is enough to blow him out of the boardroom, she said. Use it right, and his credibility's gone. That's the plan. But there was one more angle I needed to kill. The unstable runaway story Blake was feeding everyone. Kate solved it in 1 sentence. We were at her apartment when she looked at me and said, "If we're doing this, we do it right." Meaning? Meaning we get married before you go back. I blinked. She didn't. Blake's whole argument depends on you being a lone, unstable drifter. You show up married to a successful HR consultant? Narrative dead. It kills their entire angle. Exactly. Then she softened. And we were going to do it anyway. Strategic timing. And because I love you. I laughed for the first time in weeks. We got married at the courthouse 2 weeks later. Small ceremony, just us and 2 witnesses Kate knew from work. No family, no big production. It was ours, private. The exact opposite of everything about my family. Kate took point on operations. She was good at this. systems and processes and thinking 3 steps ahead. Kate built the system. Jennifer built the legal wall. I built the pitch. We rehearsed until there were no openings. This wasn't just some vague idea about modernizing the company. This was a full strategic plan for Hartwell Manufacturing's operational restructuring and market repositioning. 40-page document with executive summary, market analysis, competitive assessment, revenue projections, operational improvements, and a 3-year implementation timeline. I wasn't walking in blind. I'd worked summers on that floor, learned the workflows, and I'd spent 2 years running my own operation where mistakes cost real money. I sent a letter through Jennifer, short, direct. I'm available for a meeting to discuss the trust restructuring and my potential involvement in Hartwell Manufacturing's operations. I'll be in Ohio the week of October 15th. I require complete access to company financials, board meeting minutes, and current operational reports. I will be accompanied by my wife and my attorney. Blake called Jennifer's office within 90 minutes. Tell him to stop being dramatic and just come home like a normal person. Jennifer's response was perfect. Mr. Brennan is happy to meet under the terms outlined in his letter. If those terms aren't acceptable, we'll see you in court. They sent the documents 3 days later. Kate and I spent a week going through every page. The financial picture was worse than we'd thought. Revenue down 22% over 3 years. Operating margins squeezed to almost nothing. Major clients lost with no replacement revenue. Employee turnover at 43% in the past 18 months. But the board minutes were even more revealing. Blake had been lying to them, consistently, blaming missed targets on supply chain issues that didn't exist, claiming employee departures were retirement when they were actually people fleeing his management, covering up safety violations and inspection failures. The board was frustrated but didn't have enough information to act. Blake was the owner's son, he had his father's ear, and nobody wanted to start a family war. They were waiting for someone to give them permission to act. I was going to be that someone. 1 week before we flew out, I got an email from Vanessa. Subject line, "Can we talk?" I showed it to Kate. "Could be a trap," she said. "Probably is." "Set up a meeting," I said. "Public place, you come with me. If it feels like a setup, we leave." Kate sent a reply from her email address. "Connor's wife here. He's willing to meet. Coffee shop on neutral ground. I'll be present. No surprises." Vanessa agreed. We flew to Ohio on a Tuesday, rented a car, checked into a hotel near the airport. Didn't tell anyone we were there. The meeting with Vanessa was scheduled for Wednesday afternoon at a Starbucks downtown. We pulled into the parking lot 15 minutes early. Kate scanned the area. "Black sedan, 3 spots down," she said quietly. "Someone sitting in the driver's seat." I looked. Couldn't see the face through the tinted windows, but the posture looked familiar. "Blake, want to abort?" I thought about it. "No. Let's see what game they're playing." Vanessa was already inside. She looked different than I remembered. Thinner, less polished. She saw Kate and hesitated. "Who's this?" "My wife," I said, sitting down. Vanessa blinked. "You got married?" 2 months ago. What do you want, Vanessa?" She leaned forward, voice dropping. "Look, I know this looks bad, but I wanted to warn you. Blake's planning something for the board meeting. He's got Dad to sign some documents that—" "Is Blake outside right now?" Kate interrupted. Vanessa's face gave her away. Just a flicker, but it was enough. "I don't know what you're—" Kate pulled out her phone, showed Vanessa a picture she'd just taken. Blake's sedan in the parking lot. Timestamp visible. "You're wired," Kate said flatly. "Or you're supposed to get Connor to say something they can use." "Which is it?" Vanessa's eyes went wide. "I'm not— I was just trying to— We're done here." Kate stood up. "Connor, let's go." I didn't move yet. Looked at Vanessa directly. "You know what the sad part is? I actually thought you might be different." "Connor, I am helping. I just—" "No. You're covering your own interests. Same as always." I stood up and walked out with Kate. In the car, she was already texting Jennifer. "Documented attempt to bait you into an on-record statement," Kate said. It was sloppy. "They're desperate." Good. Desperate people make mistakes. We drove back to the hotel. My tongue pressed against my molars, but my hands were steady on the wheel. "You okay?" Kate asked. "Yeah. I just needed to see it for myself." She squeezed my hand. "You've got me, and we're going to bury them." Jennifer called that night. "The Vanessa setup gives us everything we need," she said. "If they keep trying to contact you directly after counsel notice, I'll move for a protective order." Judges hate games like this. Meanwhile, Jennifer filed our response, and their petition got withdrawn once we showed up through counsel. The unreachability argument died immediately. 3 days later, my cousin Amy sent the reunion video to Kate's inbox. No commentary, just the file. I watched it once, saw my dad pull me forward, heard the crowd erupt, saw myself standing there frozen while they laughed. I saved it to 3 different drives. We booked a refundable return flight for Friday night. just in case. Friday morning. I put on a suit for the first time in 2 years. Dark gray, tailored. Kate wore a black blazer and carried a leather folder. We didn't go to the company first. We went to the hospital. My dad was in a private room on the 4th floor, recovering from his second stroke. I walked in without knocking. He was awake, propped up in bed, thinner than I remembered. His eyes went wide when he saw me. He tried to speak. Nothing came out but a weak rasp. I sat down in the chair next to his bed. Kate stayed by the door. Don't talk. Just listen. He nodded, barely. I'm back because you and Blake tried to screw me legally. Not because I forgive you, but because I'm not letting you erase me from the trust after what you did at that reunion. His hand twitched on the blanket. I'm going to save your company. I'm going to fix everything Blake broke. And when this is done, you're going to understand exactly what you threw away when you called me a mistake in front of 50 people. I stood up. One more thing. That speech? I have the video. If Blake tries anything, that video goes public. Your legacy becomes the guy who humiliated his own kid for laughs. Your choice. I walked out without waiting for a response. Kate was quiet until we got to the car. That was cold, she said. Good. Next stop was the family house. Big colonial in the suburbs. Same place I grew up. I rang the doorbell instead of using my old key. Blake opened the door. He looked older than his voicemail sounded. Hair thinner, shoulders tight with stress. He tried to play it casual. Took you long enough. Where's the documentation I asked for? He blinked. What? The financial reports. The board minutes. The operational assessments. Where is it? Come on, man. Let's sit down first. Talk like normal people. Try again. He stepped aside, irritated. They're in Dad's office. I walked past him. Dad's office looked like a disaster zone. Papers stacked everywhere. Files in crooked piles. Coffee rings on every surface. This was Blake's workspace now. This mess was how he operated. I started photographing everything. Financial statements, vendor contracts, employee files. Blake appeared in the doorway. What are you doing? Documenting. You can't just... I can. I'm a beneficiary of the family trust. I have legal standing. You want to stop me? Call your lawyer. He didn't. I spent 2 hours going through everything. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Revenue down 28% over 3 years, not the 22% they'd reported to the board. Blake had been fudging the numbers. 3 major clients lost in the past 6 months alone. One of them, Patterson Industrial, had been with Hartwell for 30 years. They'd left a scathing email explaining why. Missed deadlines, poor communication, and Blake personally insulting their procurement manager during a phone call. Employee turnover wasn't 43%, it was 51%. Blake had been reclassifying terminations as voluntary departures. I photographed everything and sent it to Jennifer and Kate in real time. Blake kept hovering. Look, I know things haven't been perfect, but you don't understand the pressure I've been under. I looked up from the files. I didn't give him anything to grab onto. You've been lying to the board. I've been managing expectations. You falsified quarterly reports. I smoothed out some inconsistencies. You lost Patterson Industrial because you called their guy an idiot. His face went red. He was trying to renegotiate prices in the middle of a contract. You lost a 30-year client. He stepped into the office. You know what? Screw you. You ran away. You disappeared for 2 years. You don't get to come back here and act like you know anything. I stood up, closed the folder. Everything goes through my attorney. Connor, we're done talking. I walked past him, went out to the car where Kate was waiting. How bad? She asked. Worse than we thought. The next day, I met with Robert, one of the minority investors from the Chicago holding company. He'd been trying to get answers about Hartwell's performance for months, and Blake had been stonewalling him. We met at a restaurant downtown. I brought the dossier. Robert flipped through it silently, his expression darkening with every page. This is worse than we thought, he said finally. Blake's been covering it up, firing anyone who complains. Can you fix it? I slid the business proposal across the table. I can, but I need a board seat and operational control. He read through the first few pages. This is solid. I've had time to think. He smiled. I'll bring this to the board meeting, but you'll need to present it yourself. Absolutely. I visited the manufacturing floor, talked to employees. The pattern was clear. Blake had been cutting corners, delaying safety upgrades, ignoring maintenance schedules. I met with Paul, one of our key vendors, told him change was coming, asked him to hold on a little longer. You're the brother, right? The one who disappeared? Yeah. Why should we trust you? Because I actually know how to run a business. And because I'm not Blake. He laughed. Good enough for me. We extended the rental and the hotel. I wasn't leaving Ohio again until the board vote was done. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 weeks out. 2 weeks later, I arrived early with Kate and Jennifer. We'd prepared for 3 days straight. Blake showed up 15 minutes late, looking rattled. He tried to sit at the head of the table. Robert gestured to a different seat. Connor's presenting first. Blake's face went red, but he sat. I stood up and started. No pleasantries, no apologies, just facts. I walked them through the revenue decline, the client losses, the vendor complaints, the employee turnover, the safety violation. Then I showed them Blake's attempts to cover it up. Emails where he blamed employees for his mistakes, documents he'd falsified, vendors he'd threatened. The room was silent. Then I presented the solution, the modernization plan, the vendor stabilization strategy, the employee retention program. I ended with the organizational restructure. Blake removed from operations, new executive oversight, external audit. And who runs this new structure? One board member asked. I do, I said, as acting COO with full operational authority. Blake exploded. You can't be serious. He's been gone for 2 years. He doesn't know anything about this company. Another board member spoke up. Henry Walsh, one of the older investors who'd been close to my grandfather. Connor left because he wasn't wanted. Blake made that clear. Now Blake's run the company into the ground, and Connor's offering to fix it. Where's the problem? Blake turned to him. You're going to believe the runaway son over... I'm believing the numbers, Walsh said, and the resignation letters, and the vendor complaints. Your brother documented everything. Kate spoke up for the first time, voice calm and precise. The operational restructuring plan includes external oversight and quarterly audits. If Connor fails to meet benchmarks, the board can remove him. Blake had no such accountability. The room shifted. 2 other board members nodded. I looked at Blake. I know you've run it into the ground. That's enough. Robert stood up. I move to approve Connor's proposal in full. Another board member. Seconded. All in favor? 6 hands went up. Out of 8 total. Blake stared. Dad's not going to approve this. Dad already did, Robert said. We met with him yesterday. He signed the transfer of authority this morning. Blake looked like he'd been hit by a truck. He stood up, knocking his chair back. This is bullshit. You can't just... Kate signaled to the back of the room. Security appeared behind Blake. Sit down, I said quietly. Screw you. Sit down, or security will escort you out. Your choice. He looked around the room. Nobody was backing him up. He sat. The meeting continued for another hour. Details were finalized. Timelines were set. Blake didn't say another word. As we filed out, he tried to corner me in the hallway. You think you won, he hissed. You're still the same screw-up you've always been. I looked at him. No, Blake. I'm the guy who just took your job. That's the difference. I walked away. Kate was waiting by the elevator. How do you feel? She asked. Tired, but good. First 2 weeks. I paid off every vendor we owed, cleared about $83,000 in backed up invoices, and brought in an outside safety consultant to audit the facility. The consultant arrived on a Tuesday morning. Phil Rodriguez, former OSHA inspector, now independent. He walked the floor for 3 hours with a clipboard and a camera. He found me in my office around noon. You've got 30 days to fix 17 violations, he said, sliding the report across my desk. 3 of them are shutdown level if they're not addressed. I scanned the list. Faulty ventilation in the paint booth. Emergency exits blocked by storage. Fire suppression system 4 years overdue for inspection. How much to fix everything? Ballpark? 120,000? I didn't hesitate. Draw up the specifications. I'll authorize it today. He blinked. Just like that? Just like that. Blake let this place fall apart because fixing problems costs money. I'd rather spend money than watch someone get hurt. He nodded slowly. All right then. I'll have specs to you by Friday. Week 3. I flew to Patterson Industrial. 4-hour meeting. Walked them through every operational change. They agreed to a trial contract. 6 months, reduced volume, but it was a start. By month 3, people were actually talking to each other again. 2 people who'd quit under Blake's watch called asking about openings. Kate rebuilt the employee handbook, set up proper grievance procedures, and trained the management team. Revenue started stabilizing. Client relationships were improving. Blake left the company quietly. No announcement. Just gone. By month 8, we were profitable again. Then, Blake made his last move. I was in a vendor meeting when Kate walked in, looking tense. Blake sent an email to the entire staff list, claiming you forced him out illegally, that the company's going to fail. I read the email. It was desperate, sloppy, full of vague accusations. Forward it to Jennifer, I said, and send a company-wide response. 10 minutes later, every employee received a message from HR addressing the unauthorized email and referring it to legal. My phone rang. It was Robert. Meridian Capital just got a call from Blake, he said, voice tight, claiming the operational changes are destroying the company and that we need to intervene. He's trying to get us to reverse the board decision. What did you tell him? I told him to review our Q2 numbers and then go away. We're up 18% since you took over. He's done. I called Jennifer. Defamation, interference with business operations, and now contacting investors to undermine company leadership, she said. That's a pattern. Want me to file? Send him a final cease and desist. Make it clear that if he contacts anyone associated with this company again, we pursue charges immediately. He wasn't dumb enough to ignore it. The emails stopped. The calls stopped. Blake disappeared completely. A week later, he showed up. 8 months after the board vote, I was in the middle of a strategy meeting when my assistant knocked. Someone's here to see you, says it's urgent. I looked up. Who? Blake Brennan. The room went quiet. Kate, who was sitting across from me, raised an eyebrow. Want me to have security remove him? My assistant asked. I thought about it. Send him in. Blake walked through the door and I barely recognized him. He'd aged 5 years worth in 8 months. Hair thinner, graying at the temples. Lost weight, but not in a healthy way. Clothes wrinkled, shoes scuffed. He looked around the conference room. 6 people, all staring at him. Kate, Greg, Robert, 3 other senior staff members. Can we talk? Blake said, voice rough. Alone? No, I said. Anything you want to say, you can say in front of everyone here. His jaw clenched. Fine. I need a job. Nobody moved. You need a job, I repeated. Yeah. I've been applying everywhere for 6 months. Nobody's hiring me. I'm out of money. The house is in foreclosure. I need work. I leaned back in my chair. And you came here. You're family. I thought. No, I said. We're relatives. There's a difference. His face flushed. Come on, Connor. I'm asking for help. The way you helped me when I asked to borrow $1,500 for textbooks, when you told me to get a job and stop being lazy, that was different. How? He opened his mouth, closed it. I was young. I didn't understand. You were 28. I was 21. You understood fine. You just didn't care. Kate spoke up. She slid a document across the table, a printed timeline of every harassment attempt, every defamatory call, every documented action Blake had taken. You called his clients and told them he was mentally unstable, she said, voice calm. His accounts got hit with password resets from Ohio, and his car was broken into right after your call started. The timing speaks for itself. You sent emails to our staff trying to sabotage the company. You called our investors trying to undermine his authority. Blake looked at the document, then at her. Who the hell are you? His wife. And the person who documented every single thing you did. Blake turned back to me. Look, I screwed up, but I'm desperate. I need something. Anything. I'll take a floor position. I don't care. Why would I hire you? Because I know this business. I grew up in it. You ran it into the ground in 3 years. You lied to the board. You destroyed client relationships. You fired good people for no reason other than they made you look bad. Why would I let you anywhere near this company? His voice cracked. Because I have nowhere else to go. I stood up, walked over to the window, looked down at the production floor, people working, machines running. Then I turned back to Blake. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of this building. You're going to figure out your life on your own. The same way I had to after you and Dad spent 26 years making me feel like I didn't belong in my own family. Connor, you're going to get a job somewhere else. You're going to work for someone who doesn't know your name. You're going to build something for yourself instead of coasting on what other people built for you. I can't, and you're never going to contact me, my wife, or anyone at this company again. If you show up here again, I'll have you trespassed. If you contact any of my employees, I'll file a restraining order. He just stood there, breathing hard. Finally, he spoke, voice barely above a whisper. You know what Dad used to say about you? He said you were weak, that you'd never amount to anything. I smiled. How's that working out for him? Blake stared at me for another 5 seconds. Then he turned and walked out. Kate was already on her phone. Security confirmed, she said. Trespass notice filed. Building access revoked, she sent another message. HR memo sent. All staff notified. Nobody said anything for a full minute. Then Greg broke the silence. That was brutal. Yeah, I said. Kate stood up, walked over, put her hand on my shoulder. You okay? I'm good. I looked around the room. All right. Where were we? Robert cleared his throat. Operations review. The meeting continued. An hour later, after everyone else had left, Kate and I stood by the window overlooking the production floor. You know he's going to tell people you're heartless, she said. Probably. Does that bother you? I watched the floor below. People working together, communicating, building things. No, I said. Because the people whose opinions matter know the truth. She smiled. Good answer. Besides, I added, I'm not heartless. I'm just done being their backup plan. Kate leaned against me. My phone buzzed. Text from Jennifer. Trespass order confirmed with local PD. He's done. We left the building together, walked out to the parking lot where my car was parked next to hers. Not a rental anymore. My car. My name on the registration. My life. Behind us, Hartwell Manufacturing kept running. Kate locked the car. We drove. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.